viewers, and welcome to this first look at FIA European Truck Racing Championship. And here we see a bit of action then diving in to my first race, and I'm going to tell you a bit about my first impressions so far and what I've thought of the game. European truck racing, it's not something I know a great deal about myself. I've seen the odd race here and there on TV, but it's not a series I necessarily follow, and there isn't always the coverage in the UK. But when you do see these trucks racing, they are enormously impressive. Just the scale of these trucks racing around at speed, the velocity, the weight, the skill of the drivers, it really is quite epic actually seeing them in action. And so the first thing I do, I've got hold of the game, I dive in for a run, and running here on my triple screens, I just thought I'd try out this very early preview build and see what we think of it on this first look. And I decided to choose the Le Mans Bugatti circuit to first test out the truck, see what it was all about. And throughout this video, we're going to look at some of the contents of the game. There's still a lot being worked on, and we're going to look at everything in a later overview, slightly close to launch when the game's more complete. But we are going to look at some of the driving sort of aspects to the driving, stuff like that. And if you guys would like to have some no comment runs as well, do let me know. I can always run no comment runs on some of the races that you're seeing here. So diving into my first race then, and I like the feeling of being in the truck. I like the graphics, and the visuals were surprisingly impressive to me. The truck models in particular, very detailed. Nice little spot effects for brakes locking, stuff like that. The truck itself handled surprisingly intuitively. In fact, I really like the handling. I haven't driven a vehicle like this. I've driven many types of vehicles, but I've not driven one this big in this sort of racing style. But it behaves in a very authentic way, and I certainly, the handling communicated with me. I certainly felt the handling. I think the thing I found more tricky was the gearing. You're really in the top two gears, and seventh gear, as it has here, is sort of like a power gear, where it has a lot of torque. It just drags the truck forward, and then it has this boost in the middle of it where you get tons of wheel spin, and so you're trying to control this boost in the middle of the corner, and meanwhile you can't hit those bollards. It's very easy to just drive off, so you really need to bring together a precision in your driving, as well as the control in terms of the various throttle. You can see me working the wheel there. That's where that boost comes in, and the rear wheels are spinning up, and it's almost like how much can you carry through a corner, how much risk can you take in terms of your braking and stuff like that. Let's just take a quick look now at some of the menus, and we'll just let the chap here explain it all to you further.
Welcome to the FIA European Truck Racing Championship. If you'd like to work your way up to the top and battle it out for truck racing's top prize, head over to Career, create your driver, and we can get your journey started. Otherwise, you can explore some of the other modes available.
So we can explore the other modes. So there we have the intro chap there, just explaining the menu setup. It's quite limited at the moment. This is still in development, so we're going to check out some of that slightly later. You got all the drivers there from the Euro trucks as well as the World Series as well. That was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting, one, this game sort of came out of left field, and two, we've got the World Series in there as well as the European truck racing, which is quite surprising really to have that in there. As for all the tracks, well, there are plenty of tracks as you can see in there. I haven't counted all the tracks, and I don't know a full confirmation of everything that's in the game as of yet. I will come back on that later, and you'll see that on the website. And you've got various assists, set up, penalties, tuning your truck. We're going to look at that again on a later video here. I tried with this on and off, just trying to get a feel for it. Bit of direct feed. Some of this video, quite a bit of it is with my GoPro. When I'm running triple screens, I can't record the direct feed at the moment. It's on board now, and just various different views on board as I was getting used to it, running these different circuits and checking out a bit of the replay mode to see some of the various different views you can play from in the game. So you've got all these different viewpoints. You can have with steering wheel, without steering wheel, which makes it fun for me in cockpit in particular. And some great circuits in here. Do like this one actually. I believe this one's in Canada. I'll have to double check. I've said it now, but I like this circuit. Very cool. Nice flowing undulation. Nice sort of feel to the corners. You've got to be committed in some areas, but there's risk to the commitment because the track falls away from you, and the track falls away, you lose that rear end grip, and then the truck's all over the place. And so working my way up in terms of the AI, I look forward to pushing the AI more, and we actually do see that a bit more later in the video. So I did some racing here, and at first I was struggling with an understanding on the gearing. It sounds a bit odd, but you need a gear that gives you some drive into a corner, and then as soon as the corner's going to open up, you shift up, because then there's a slight delay before the next gear can engage and really start to bring in the power. So you're shifting before you would in a car. You're shifting early before the apex. So you're accelerating to a higher gear into the apex, and it's much more on the limit than on the exit. So you can really surge some power through on the exit. And at some of these moments of driving here, I wasn't doing that because I was still figuring that out. Also, one of the big things you'll see in this truck racing is there's a gauge just on the dashboard there, just to the lower right, which is that blue line that you might be able to see. I'm pointing to it, but you guys can't see it. It's there. No, it's down there. No, it's all right. And basically, you'll see that blue line represents how much water you have in your tank. Now, when you're braking heavily, your brakes get very hot, so you send a jet of water on there to cool them down. Ultimately, this becomes kind of like a boost tool, like an overpower tool, in terms of when you want to overtake, you brake very hard, you spray some water, and you can really brake as late as you want to with these trucks. However, you can run out. So there's a strategy which I would tend to lift and coast slightly. When I've got a bit of space around me, I'm not overtaking anybody, lift and coast, brake with the gears as long as you don't put too much power on your gearbox, and I haven't tried any kind of penalty to damage the gearbox yet. But either way, lift and coast, and you don't use as much of the water, and you can save the water for later in the race. It's a strategy, it's something which you gradually see in the racing. I kind of got the hang of, and it's interesting to see how that water becomes critical towards the end of the race if you need to make last minute overtake, and your brakes will overheat and they will break entirely. So you need to look after them. They also have weekly challenges in the game, online weekly challenges, and I was just trying out one of the weekly challenges here. I believe this one was Misano, and the truck here you'll see just a bit all over the place on the exit there, keeping it together. Just about managing it. It's quite on the edge. I really look forward to seeing the expert players playing this, because they're really going to be dancing the truck around the corners, and it's a fierce beast to control, but a lot of fun all the same. You've got to get used to the style of how it understeers into some corners, but generally the handling is very solid with these vehicles. It's the placement is good. It's very intuitive. You counter for that. You steer in early to the corner knowing there's going to be understeer. You get into those tighter corners, but you need that speed on the exit. So it's definitely a style. So you're using a combination of your water for your brakes, as well as using the gears effectively. And sometimes, you just minor trail braking to try and protect your brakes. It's all about brake protection on some courses. Some sections here, you're coming for hard braking, we're going flat out. We're going to brake quite hard in just a moment, and then you use a splash of water, and you'll see my finger it's a bit dark there, but you'll see what I mean in terms of the effect of getting the truck into these slower corners. And it's actually the mid-speed corners which are quite tricky, because you're gearing wise, you're in sort of a higher gear, you're getting a bit more wheel spin, but you're trying to control the throttle, control the power on a point when it just wants to get away from you. Make sure you get back on the track, don't hit the bollard. You will get penalties, time penalties, if you hit more than 2 bollards. And the bollards are very easy to hit, but you'll find that with some racing, that precision comes into itself. Now, I had a great race, and again, do let me know, viewers, if you'd like to see the full race. These were 5-lap races I was trying out. I had a full race around Laguna Seca. Great circuit, love the circuit. It's a bit busy at the beginning of the race. Obviously everybody's sort of crowding around. You will sustain some damage, so there is various damage to the vehicle, so you don't want to hit other trucks too much. otherwise you could see yourself out of the race. And again, it was a matter of understanding where I had more performance and where they had more performance, and when to use my brakes and my various fluids that I have available in terms of the water tank there. You're really sort of gauging, can I get away with lifting and coasting a bit here just to protect some of that so I can save it for later. And this was a race that required quite a lot of heavy braking, surprisingly. You're carrying speed through there up the hill, you're attacking the apex to get up the hill, and then as you come up to the corkscrew again, it's very heavy braking at the top of the hill, pushing the engine hard as you're going up the hill, slow acceleration, and then really using the curb here, turning it in. Back end wants to step out, fighting it there, and again all through this section the truck goes very light through these corners. I was finding the rear end stepping out very tricky, but there's a lot of speed to discover, and you can get it very wrong if you fall into the wrong gear, or you don't shift at the right time. You know, if you're shifting down, you've got to lose your speed, because if you don't lose your speed, you'll lock up the rear wheels. But suspension movement, tyre movement, audio, I mean the audio for me I thought was great. I don't have much direct audio on this particular video. The audio that you'll hear from the trucks in this video, a lot of it's been recorded through the headphones, because I record it through the camera when I'm wearing the GoPro, but gives you a good idea of what it's like. It's very intense. Listen to it as loud as you can, because having it nice and loud really gives you that motorsport atmosphere. Suffice to say, good job on the audio, well done to the people who've done that. Lots of spot effects, the truck sort of lugging around and weight sound effects. You've got the general engine, you've got sort of this turbo sound kicking in over the engine, you've got various wind and atmospheric effects and bumps and things shaking, you've got the shooting of the water jets and various tyre squealing. Very nice. You've also got weather conditions, and at the moment I've only seen clear weather. You've got a sort of sunset, and you've got rain, wet weather here. This is wet, not rain, so there's no rain on the windscreen or anything like that I've seen at this stage. This is at Fuji, not a circuit I enjoy myself terribly, but it's having raced it a lot in Gran Turismo, obviously I know it very well. And again here, racing in the rain, I can't say in the time I had on it I've had the time to really analyse the difference between dry and wet in terms of overall braking distances. The trucks they're not as quick, they're not like Formula 1 cars that would aquaplane into a corner. I'm sure they do aquaplane, but the grip sensation was very hard to assess in wet weather. But you could see there I was getting quite a bit of understeer, so it might be that you get a more understeery truck in the wet weather rather than a truck that spins in the same way as a car would, because of the amount of weight and grip that you get from these tyres. They're big beasts. I can imagine it would take a lot of water, standing water, to move a truck in some way. 5 tons, impressive amount of weight, and it was quite dark as well here. I should have raced this in different conditions, I realise that now. Next time I will. I'm going to do some more videos like this. I quite enjoy using the GoPro, because I sometimes enjoy just showing the real racing sort of environment. And there was also a race here I just wanted to show on Nurburgring. This was a sunset after it had rained, and graphically it was really nice. Again, on a later video I'm going to show some direct feed of this, and there'll be some multicam videos to come as well. And it was great. I mean, look at the sunshine there. Fantastic seeing that. Going around the final corner, preparing for the race, and then it places you in the cab and you're ready to go. And you can see that the sun effect and everything else on the truck. It's really impressive. As you get on the power and work your way down to turn 1. Always a tricky braking point here. You want to be as wide as you can. I'm a bit too tight on entry. I think there's a truck on my outside somewhere there, so I'm having to go very slow, keep it as tight as possible. But it's very challenging, because when you're 2 or 3 wide through that first corner, You're literally at maximum lock of your turning circle, and if you're too slow, you get on the power and you'll lose a lot of positions. So correct gearing is really important. And again, through this section, you're sort of dancing the truck through this section, but I just wanted to show you guys the different lighting, the way the lighting's shining through the cockpit, stuff like that. This is all a nice surprise, really. I mean, I play a lot of Gran Turismo, as I was saying, and it feels like a Gran Turismo for trucks. I was instantly playing this and thinking, it's quite intuitive, actually. I immediately know what I'm doing. I feel quite at home with it. It's quite surprising. We'll have to see what the conversion's going to be like to consoles. Obviously, I'm using the PC version here, but I look forward to seeing what the console conversion is going to be like. This is coming from PS4, Xbox One and Switch as well. Interesting, on the Switch, truck racing on the Nintendo Switch. It is becoming the driving handheld. So very much enjoyed that, and again I couldn't really say without detailed analysis of the driving and lap time comparison what the difference was in the wet. I wasn't really feeling a great deal of difference in the wet, but as I was mentioning, maybe it's more of the understeer you get in the wet rather than just sliding around due to the conditions themselves. So then I tried the Nurburgring again during the dry weather conditions, and pretty intense. So I'm just going to leave you with a bit of this action for a moment and then come back in just a moment. So slight knock from behind there, and you can see it just destabilized the truck in terms of turning onto that slow corner. And this was a very tricky section around here. The truck would become very light at the rear and it could easily lose it. Once it started to lose it on a downhill section, you had to decelerate very quickly and just try and not lock your brakes, but try and just slight braking to try getting the vehicle slowed but gradually back under control. But if you're too fast, you lost rear end completely. Once it gets away from you, that's it, it's over. This was a race here of bringing everything together. I mean, in the early race, if you look at the first race I ran, there was a message that kept coming up on the screen telling you to cool your brakes, and your pit lady, whoever she was, keeps telling you to cool your brakes. But I turned that off swiftly because it was something that I didn't need all that. I could just read from my dials that's fine for me. But I would turn off a lot of those notices that you'll still see coming up. I don't take any notice of those. I'm focused generally on the racing itself and just trying to maximise my speed to close on these guys. They're having their own little battles as well. At the same time, being very careful to understand track limits, which is quite tricky in big vehicles like this. It takes a bit of time to get your head around the width of the vehicle, but as soon as you do, you know, the extra height does make a big difference in terms of your seating position to give you that feeling of the width of the vehicle, that view you need. And again, you know, the start-finish straight, I always found it was quite challenging against the AI braking into this corner. Sometimes they're a little bit quicker than me, a bit later on the brakes, but perhaps they were using their water jets a lot more than I was, and that can help you later in the race. So early in the race you might be struggling a little bit, but as the race goes on, when they've burned through a lot of their coolant, you've still got a lot there to maximise. You can see I lost the rear end there, but managed to decelerate enough, lost those positions, and just pushed a bit too hard. I was trying to get through that battle and managed to keep position, but obviously a lot of time lost on the trucks in front. And we're using the smaller Nurburgring course here. Obviously the trucks are not as quick as the, you know, Formula 1 cars or Le Mans or anything like that, so it's appropriate to use the shorter version of the course. But it still retains the essence of the Nurburgring, and it's very satisfying corners like that to sweep through. You use a bit of runoff, a bit of oversteer sometimes, and just controlling that on the exit corners. But again, smoother is better, and you'll see where possible, if you're on good traction, you just got to find the limit of that traction. But it feels satisfying when you're really crossing that limit, and I think that's where top players are really going to be dancing around on the limit of sort of traction, trying to maximise the truck out the corners into the chicane again, making good ground that time. So learning all the time in this video. I've been learning with these races and enjoying it, and it's been good fun so far. So I'm going to leave you now with a bit of racing as I finish this race on European Truck Racing from Big Ben. Looking very impressive so far. It's a game that came from nowhere in terms of my radar. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting anything of it in a way. I was thinking, well, let's see what comes of it. And surprising, I thought, wow, I play a lot of Gran Turismo. It feels to me like Gran Turismo with trucks. So we'll have a full overview of the game coming very soon. We've got some races coming, some coverage hopefully for E3 next week, and we'll see more truck racing action there. Do let me know if there's any particular trucks or courses you'd like to see if I do a race, and see what some of the more full-length race distances are like, if possible as well. Certainly a lot to look forward to. That'd be good fun. But that's it from me for now. I'm going to leave you this racing, and there'll be more from me very soon.